Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Washington Times Media Spotlight. I am your host, Steve Malzberg. And last week, the spotlight was shining on the interview with Joe Biden and George Stephanopoulos on ABC. But I want to first start with something that took place on Saturday, something that was revealed on Saturday on CNN. Victor Blackwell had two radio hosts who had previously interviewed Joe Biden since the debate, and they revealed something about the questions and where they came from. Watch.
Were those questions given to you by the White House, or did you have, or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved of them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview?
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
Wow. WURD radio host, or former host, we'll get to that, Andrea Lawful-Sanders, and the gentleman sitting next to her from Milwaukee, Earl Ingram, both revealing that they had received questions from the White House to ask Joe Biden. Now, did Stephanopoulos get his from the White House? We'll get to that. But next, Blackwell, well, he stated the obvious.
And the reason I ask is not a criticism of either view. It's just that if the White House is trying now to prove the vim, vigor, acuity of the president, I don't know how they do that by sending questions first before the interview so that the president knows what's coming.
Good for Victor Blackwell, but not so good for Lawful-Sanders. One day after that CNN appearance, Andrea Lawful-Sanders and radio station WURD parted ways. In a statement put out by the station, they said, in part, that Lawful-Sanders accepted these questions without knowledge of station management, and the predetermined questions violated their practice of remaining independent. The host and the station, they said, mutually parted ways, and the station will remain an independent voice and will hold elected officials accountable. Wow, pretty stunning and good for the station. I can't help but feel that Lawful-Sanders was kind of caught in the middle, but that's the business. And again, good for WURD. Now, on to George Stephanopoulos. Where did his questions come from? Well, he didn't talk about that, but before the interview started, he did have this message for listeners.
Earlier this afternoon, we taped the 22-minute interview. There are no cuts, no edits. We have not touched it.
Well, he never did say where the questions came from, but he did get right to it once the interview started. Watch.
You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition? You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Now, very early on, there was an answer from Joe Biden that George Stephanopoulos could have, and in my view, should have really jumped on.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Biden doesn't think he watched the debate after the fact. That was red meat for George Stephanopoulos. He didn't take it, but he did go right back at it after Joe Biden's cognitive health.
Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day.
He also allowed Biden to claim that Donald Trump distracted him during the debate because he shouted after they cut Trump's mic. First, we're hearing of this, so he didn't press him on that either. But he did keep the tough questions coming right on till the end.
When you look at the reality, though, Mr. President, I mean, you won the popular vote in 2020, but it was still deadly close in the Electoral College.
7 million votes.
Yes, but you're behind now in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is it worth the risk? I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that. Mr. President, I've never seen a president at 36% approval get reelected.
And at the end of the interview, Stephanopoulos brought in his colleague, Jonathan Karl, who basically said the interview had changed nothing.
There was nothing in this interview that will force Joe Biden out of the race. There was no, major thing that will convince him or any of his allies. I believe they have to go. But there's also nothing in this interview that will calm the nerves of Democrats who are saying it is time for him to get out.
I'm really not sure what that one interview was supposed to have changed. But nonetheless, I was surprised that Stephanopoulos was as tough on Biden as he was. If you take the fact that he's a lifelong Democrat, he worked for the Clintons, and some of his more recent dealings with Republicans on camera and what he said about them when they were not there. Watch.
It's going to be a challenge for those who are doing the debate in June. I mean, I think it's journalistic malpractice to do a live interview with President Trump on television.
You've made it very clear you believe the president can defy the Supreme Court. Senator, thanks for your time this morning. No, George. Roundtable's up next.
Well, first of all, a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. You know that, and I know that. There is no way that Joe Biden's going to finish his term. I think Kamala Harris is going to be the next president, and that should send a chill up every American's spine. But I also think the fact that we have a primary.
Excuse me, 1 second, Ambassador. How do you know that Joe Biden's not going to finish his term? What is that based on?
How times have changed. All in all, I think Stephanopoulos, if his goal was to ask tough questions but not press all that hard, he succeeded. I give him a B+. And speaking of questions, it reminds me of an interview I did with Stephanopoulos on WURD Radio back in April of 2008, a day before he'd be moderating a Democrat presidential debate. I asked him if he'd be asking Barack Obama about his relationship with William Ayers. And he stopped me.
Do you think the William Ayers story will...
What do you think the question is on that?
So I proceeded to ask the question the way I would ask it of Barack Obama, and Stephanopoulos seemed impressed.
Damn good question.
Well, thank you. I hope you ask it.
And he did ask it during that debate. But I'll assume the questions he asked Joe Biden last Friday were his own. Now, on Sunday, Stephanopoulos was back in the host chair on ABC's This Week. And one of the guests said this, and George let her get away with it.
To bypass Kamala Harris because some Republicans and a few others may not like her, it would be political malpractice. As I tell everyone, Kamala Harris has earned the right to be considered we got a lot of what-if scenarios. But she's strong. She's down in Louisiana. She had a rally last night with 60,000 people.
But there was no Kamala Harris rally in Louisiana with 60,000 people. Maybe Donna Brazile, the former DNC chair, was referring to what Kamala Harris herself posted on X.
I had to stop by to congratulate Essence on 30 years of the Essence Festival of Culture. So enjoy this evening. Let us always celebrate the diversity, the depth, and the beauty of our culture. Have fun tonight, and I'll see you at the convention center tomorrow.
That was the VP in New Orleans at the Superdome at an Essence Fest concert with tens of thousands of people. She stopped by to say hello. It wasn't a Kamala Harris rally. Let's get it straight. Now, just because the media has been obsessed with Joe Biden, it doesn't mean they're not taking their shots at Donald Trump. Here's Joy Reid on social media.
Y'all just tell me who the nominee is going to be. Let me know when you guys are finished fighting amongst yourselves who I got to vote for in November to keep Hitler out the White House. That's all I want to know. Who I got to vote for to keep Hitler out the White House.
Yes, that was pretty bad from the MSNBC host, but nothing we haven't heard before from her and others, but not anything like what you're about to see. Watch.
Joe, you now have the right to take that bitch Trump out. Take him out, Joe. If he was Hitler and this was 1940, you'd take him out. Well, he is Hitler and this is 1940. Take him the out.
That was Orange is the New Black actress Leah Delaria. She's also a comedian. Apparently calling for the assassination of Donald Trump to be okayed and perpetrated by Joe Biden and his people. Can you imagine if a conservative actor or comedian said the same thing, or actress? It would be page one news. But the mainstream media on this was basically silent. which is why you need the Washington Times Media Spotlight. Thank you for watching. Please spread the link. I'm Steve Malzberg, and until next time, stay safe.